Ukraine's Holocaust survivors have been speaking emotionally about the war they're now enduring and sending a blunt message to Vladimir Putin.
Путин, забирай свои войска и убирайся с Украины. Мы хотим мира.
Ми хотим міра. У червні місяці почалася війна. Моїх усіх по маминій лінії євреїв забрали євреїв у Бабій Яр. І всі загинули там. Сьогодні я зустрічаю також у Києві, але вже в цьому році це страхіття страшне. Путін, щоб ти був здох, покинь нас, покинь, сволоч нас, щоб ми тебе не бачили і не чули, хто ти і що ти.
Earlier this week, a Russian airstrike took out a TV tower in Kyiv that sits on the territory of Babyn Yar, where more than 30,000 Jews were murdered by the Nazis in 1941. And joining me now to talk about this is Rabbi Yaakov Bleich. He's chief rabbi of Ukraine and serves on the supervisory board of the Babyn Yar Holocaust Memorial Center. Rabbi, it's such an honor to have you with us. Thank you so much. We have all heard that phrase, never forget. But how do you wrap your mind around seeing again this horrendous attempt to wipe the heritage and culture of a people from the earth in Ukraine by Vladimir Putin? It's disgusting.
So I just want to tell you a few things. First of all, that video that you played of those women, Holocaust survivors, are in the assisted living home that I built with a grant, by the way, from the United States Department of Agriculture, for that matter. And it was that video of those women in that shelter, and they all went through the war. They're all survivors. And if you understood what they were saying, they're bringing out a lot of emotion. And they're discussing the emotion. One of them, when I spoke to her the evening previously, she told me, she said, God, made me live long enough to see two wars. I thought one would be enough. I didn't think I would have to ever in my life live to see another war. And she said that when she was just hoping that television tower or the bomb that fell in Babyn Yar will wake up the dead of Babyn Yar and have them come up and fight against Putin and beat him. This was like the type of emotions that these people were saying. It was very, very emotional. And I've said it a number of times, I'll say it again. The feeling of seeing someone wipe out the one memorial that exists and that's being developed to bring memory to the people who were killed once in Babyn Yar, killed again by the Soviets, not allowing any type of memorial to be put up there. And finally, we get this memorial going over the last 30 years. And the last 6 years, Babyn Yar Holocaust Memorial Center is finally they put up a synagogue there and they put up other things. And then on that territory of Babyn Yar, right behind the administrative building of the cemetery where there were graves, onto that spot, the bomb fell. I think that was one of the most horrendous feelings that I had. And believe me, I've gone through a week of terror, 10 days of terror. Never dreaming to see Kiev, and Ukraine being blanket bombed, the way Chechnya. This is what, Putin did in Chechnya, this is what he did in Syria, and now he's just doing it in Ukraine. And he has the audacity to say he's coming to fight fascism, he's coming to save the Russian speakers from the Ukrainian fascists. I mean, he is killing Russian speakers. He's wiping out Kharkiv, which is a city that has probably a majority of Russian speakers. Is that how he's trying to save them?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, Rabbi. How twisted is it that Putin is trying to brainwash Russians into believing that he's doing all of this to stop the Nazification of Ukraine, preying on the feelings of pride that Russians have from fighting the Nazis during World War II? It's sick.
It's sick, and if he didn't have a controlled mass media, he would never be able to do it. So that's one of the things when everything is controlled, and Facebook was now shut down, and he's not allowing them access to the truth and to what's happening, and he's brainwashing people. And you feel like, I came to live in Ukraine during the times of the Soviet Union. I lived there for 2 full years, the entire year of 1990 and 91 under the Soviet Union. And I'm an American kid. I grew up in Brooklyn, at least I spent my childhood there. And I'm still growing up. I mean, but I came there, and what was the most frightening thing I see in the Soviet Union? And I lived there full time with my wife and my oldest son. And the most frightening thing I saw was not that people were afraid to say things that were wrong, but they were afraid to think, because when you think, then you start talking. This was, for me, as an American kid, 25, that was the most frightening thing. I saw that people would not think. They were controlling their thoughts so as not to say. That, I think, something that we,
It's Orwellian.
again,
It's right out of
in the West,
1984.
we take it for granted, our freedoms that we have, freedom of speech and the freedom of expression and freedom of religion, and everything. It's all freedom. It's all there. And when you come to a society like that, you see it, you should begin to value, the freedoms that we have. And I think what he has done, Putin, is to take 10 years of democracy, the fall of the Iron Curtain, the break of the Soviet Union, which for him, he said was one of the greatest catastrophes of the 20th century, even though most people think it was the greatest thing that happened for the world, but he thinks it was the greatest catastrophe. And here he is now trying to bring it back. And what he's accomplishing is he's creating a little North Korea, or a big North Korea, on the territory of Russia. And I think that's a very, very frightening moment. It's becoming, Russia's becoming a riot.
And your thoughts on President Zelensky's leadership, Jewish president of Ukraine?
He's not the Jewish president. He's the president of Ukraine, who happens to be Jewish. He's not the president of the Jews, and he's not the Jewish president. He's the president of Ukraine. However, I must tell you that, President Zelensky he's a very, very popular guy. Everybody loved him as an actor. Everyone, as a comedian, everyone. Besides maybe some of the people he was making fun of. But he was unbelievable. When he became president, he had a tremendous, tremendous surge of popularity, 73%. This was something that was unbelievable. And then his popularity started waning, as it happens usually with politicians. But I think that he has shown leadership in a way that nobody ever believed. When a man he knows that he's being hunted, and he knows that he's being hunted by one of the greatest nuclear powers, his neighbor, that they'll do anything they want to kill him, right? And he says, I will not give up. And when he's offered a ride out, he says, don't offer me a ride, offer me weapons. He has raised the morale and the spirit of the people in Ukraine. And everybody's proud of him. That's why the people of Ukraine are willing to fight. I'm in touch with my community 24/7, evacuating people, taking them out. But there are many people in my community that'll say, I will not evacuate, but I'm going to stay to fight. I even had people that were already evacuating to the west, and then they said, Rabbi, I have to go back. They turned around. They said, I can't do this. I got to go back there. I got to fight for you. I think that all of this spirit and all of this, the fighting that we're seeing, something I think that Russia never dreamt would happen, is all a part of his leadership. It's all, and I think the world is, seeing him in a different way as well.